Okay, good morning. This is the second time I've said this, so it was a good practice beforehand. Good morning. Welcome to the ADEPT Live Labs Transforming Local Places Live Lab Expo. You'll have gathered, of course, it's virtual. When we planned this back in earlier 2020, we had hoped that COVID would have gone away by now, but sadly it hasn't. So we're in the virtual space. We've got just over 222 people lined up for the session today, so a good, strong attendance. Thank you very much for finding the time. We hope to rerun this live in practice on the ground, face-to-face in early 21, where we can actually start touching things and talking to each other. But we thought rather than cancel this completely, we would stick with a virtual event just to keep the pace going. What I'd like to do is just briefly run through the session today to raise your expectation around what you can experience. So my name is Neil Gibson, ex-Executive Director for Buckinghamshire County Council, now continue to work with ADEPT and the sector on trying to make a difference, and currently chair the Live Lab Commissioning Board. Shortly, we're going to hand on to Baroness Vere, who's going to say a little about the programme and her perspective on it. We ADEPT received a very positive letter from the Baroness yesterday, which I'm sure she'll talk about in her session. Unfortunately, the Baroness has to go off into government and Parliament and answer questions, so had plans for her on for Q&A, but the Baroness has agreed to respond subsequently to any questions that you might raise after she's left. So please think of questions, plop it in the chat or the question box, and we'll get a reply to you in due course. That's followed by David Symons. I'm not going to repeat his CV, that's in the conference details, but he's a future innovation leader, some prominence working with WSP, and he'll talk about innovation in the sector or sectors more generally as a bit of a scene setter. We're then going to have a bit of fun with a quiz. More details on that. It's only 5-10 minutes just to test your knowledge around innovation. I say a bit of fun. It's a bit like a Slido arrangement. We'll then hand on to Hannah, the COO for ADEPT, who's going to introduce the Live Lab a year in with some headline facts. And then we'll have Jason Pavey from Atkins, who will be working with the Live Lab project leads just to steer them through the progress they've been making in the first year of operation. We'll then have a quick comfort break. We'll then come back. Giles, the program director for Live Labs WSP, will be running us through a Pecha Kucha. If you don't know what it is, Google it. That's what I did. Particularly focusing on some of the really exciting SMEs that have been working with the Live Labs around the country, just to share their involvement in the project and what they're up to. I'll then have a quick slot on how we capitalise on Live Labs moving forward. I'm going to try and keep my bits quite tight and allow some time for some Q&As. So through the morning, please think of things, the innovators out there, how we can capitalize on Live Labs and scale up and really make a difference to BAU. So start thinking about questions to raise in that session. We'll then conclude with Giles just outlining where the program is and next steps, and then we'll close by 1 o'clock. So a bit fast and furious. Pleased to see you all here. Pleased you can find the time. And I'll now hand on to Baroness Vere.
Thanks very much, Neil, and it's really good to be joining you today. I did look back in my diary, and this was originally going to be an awards dinner. I think we'd all quite like an awards dinner now, wouldn't we? But in any event, it's brilliant that this event has now been able to take place, albeit virtually, and I do hope that next year we'll be back in a physical space somewhere, and hopefully having a nice dinner and lots of awards as well. But it's a great opportunity to hear more about the progress made by teams within the Live Labs programme that we've brought together, local authorities, private enterprise, academia, Obviously the work on 8 groundbreaking projects is fantastic across communication, construction, energy and mobility. And I'm really pleased that the DFT has been able to support it with nearly £23 million of funding, and this will run until November next year. So it's been a real pleasure, and it is a real pleasure to recognise the hard work that you've done in extraordinarily challenging times, addressing the challenges that we face, which are far beyond the current pandemic, in how we do the adoption of digital technology across the local highway network. Some truly amazing work going on, from digitisation to artificial intelligence, to improving adult social care by helping people stay safe in and around their homes. So the end of year report provides a fascinating perspective on how road infrastructure will be built and operated in the years to come, to cater for all of us who use it or who live around it, and really to make the most of what we have. So I would strongly advise anybody who hasn't yet read the end of year report that they get on and do so, because there are so many sort of futuristic type technologies that actually are within touching distance, and we need to make sure that we bring them even closer. So there's autonomous vehicles and mobility hubs in Staffordshire, recycled road materials tested in Cumbria, which could be a great help for our perennial favourite potholes. And of course they offer a greener solution as well. But it's not just the scope of the report that's impressive, it's the fact that the work has continued during the pandemic. And I know it's been an extraordinary year, but the Secretary of State and I are so grateful for your outstanding efforts during these times. So because of COVID, I've only been to one live lab so far, which quite frankly is pathetic. So we have to do better. In February, it was actually, I went to Aylesbury and Fairford Lees to see the progress that Buckinghamshire Council with Ringway Jacobs and the LEP were doing. And I heard from Councillor Mark Shaw, about the plans for the Connected Community project at Aylesbury Garden Town. And back then, I think there were 9 people who tested COVID positive in the UK. Gosh, how times really do change. So there will be colleagues here from all different levels of the lockdown, because obviously we came out of the November restrictions, I think we're allowed to call them today. And I know that everyone will do their very best to keep everyone safe during this really critical time. So along with my colleague, Minister McLean, she's the Minister for Transport Innovation and Decarbonisation, we both look forward to getting out much more next year so that we can come and see what's going on and provide you with our support and interest to really understand how we can take these things and develop them further. Because we all need to recover from the effects of COVID-19 as quickly as we can. So at the DFT, we've launched the Acceleration Unit, which is accountable to the Transport Secretary, and this will help us speed up road upgrades and other key infrastructure projects. And it's a fantastic opportunity, not just to return to where we were before COVID, we'd all like that, but actually it's about getting somewhere to a better place, somewhere that is fast, it's somewhere that is greener, and where we are able to do projects faster and that we are able to do projects better. So I'm extremely keen as the Roads Minister to deliver our roads programme more efficiently. I can't believe how long it takes to build a road, and most of that is the bit before you even start building. So we really need to look at that and see if we can be more effective. I think there's a skills gap that we need to tackle. There's a disparity in opportunity and productivity and connectivity between the different regions of the UK, and we spend a lot of time thinking about that and how we can help various areas, level up. But I know it's a phrase, but actually it's a really important phrase, and obviously working with colleagues in local government in areas that need investment to understand exactly how we can get investment to them is really part of our job at the moment. And I think that Live Labs will help to drive many such initiatives and ideas forward. You may have seen, and it's worth a skim through actually, the government's national infrastructure strategy sort of pulls together all of our long-term ambitions for the country. The strategy puts innovation and new technology at the heart of our approach. It highlights that every infrastructure sector faces a transformative technological change over the next 20 years, and I think that's particularly the case in roads, road building and road operation, because of course we're going to have electric and autonomous vehicles coming down the track. We will also probably be having some forms of hydrogen transport and heating systems. It won't be possible to decarbonise the entire transport fleet using just battery electric. We're going to have to look to other options. And of course, we've got 5G and its successors in terms of making sure that connected vehicles can do their thing. So these technologies have not only enormous potential to improve everyone's daily lives, but they also help us to address climate change. And they make sure that the UK is at the forefront of this new industrial revolution. So we'll be hearing shortly from WSP about the innovation taking place in other sectors, which is fantastic. It is our commitment to build back better, and we will be supported by the Infrastructure Delivery Task Force, which is, we have the acceleration unit in the DFT, but the Infrastructure Delivery Task Force, Project Speed, links up across the whole of government, because of course it is not just DFT that can get stuff built faster and more effectively and using all of the innovation. We also have to work with places like MHCLG on planning, DEFRA on environmental issues. So there's a huge amount of joining up that needs to be done, and so therefore it's being led by the Chancellor and looking across the whole of government so that we can take advantage of evolving technologies and all of these innovative practices and approaches which are coming forward. Just one of those examples actually is Highways England's building of the A14 between Cambridge and Huntingdon. Some really good project management approaches there that came through, and so we were able to complete it on budget and actually open 7 months ahead of schedule. Always good. And one of the key things that they did as well was using off-site prefabrication. And I spoke to the HE board and their EXCO yesterday about the extent to which we can use elements fabricated off-site and then moved on-site. It really does speed up the process and means that disruption is less for local communities often. So that's a really good thing. So I will continue to work with Highways England in particular, obviously as a government agency on innovation, and see what we can do to boost it in their sector, and also that will also feed out into other areas. So look, whatever uncertainties we've got going forward, we're always going to need highways, we're always going to need roads, we're always going to need all sorts of transport infrastructure and local community infrastructure. It's critical to the way our entire economy operates, and it's critical to the way our society operates as well. And that's never going to change. And so that's why the work that you do is really beneficial, and I really appreciate everything that you do. And I think that as we come out of COVID, and of course it was great news on one vaccine today, and we hope there will be more coming down the track, and so we can see, I hope, the light at the end of the tunnel. So the work of the Live Labs is only going to get more important. We're really keen to get your feedback on what's been accomplished so far, because we would like to strengthen the case for future Live Labs and to build on the excellent work that's on show here today. So thank you all for listening to me. Thank you again for your outstanding contribution this year, and I look forward to an even more successful 2021. As Neil said, please do send me through some questions. I'm not able to answer questions now because I've got to head up to the House of Lords any second now to do an oral question on Belfast International Airport. I know where I'd rather be, but I know where I have to be. So once again, thank you all very much.
Baroness, just leaves me to say thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. We know you have to fly, pardon the pun. My takeaways are: everyone reads the end of year report, which is on the ADEPT website. Acceleration unit, lots of opportunity to drive things quicker, faster, more productively. Things have got to be greener. Innovation and technology is at the heart of the national infrastructure strategy. And we need to sharpen up our skills and deal with disparity in the region. Some really key messages there. We appreciate your time, really do. We hope to see you on site in 2021 with Rachel when you're all let out. And good luck in the house with your questions.
Thanks very much.
Okay, cheerio.
Bye-bye.
Okay, and the promise to answer questions. So if there's anything there that whet your appetite from what the Baroness was talking about, please raise questions through the site, and the aim is for her and the team to get back to you with responses. Okay, so we've gained a little bit of time, which is no bad thing on an action-packed event. David, are you okay to kick off 5 minutes sooner than planned?
Yeah, I'm more than fine, Neil. Yeah, thanks. Thanks very much. Yeah, good morning, everybody. Pleasure to be with you. Neil and the team had asked me to give some reflections on examples of innovation from other sectors other than highways, which led me to take you to Greek yogurt to start off with. And to tell you the story about 15 years ago, a gentleman called Hamdi Ulukaya, who bought a 85-year-old factory that made yogurt in New York. 18 months later, he sold his first pot of Chobani yogurt, and 10 years after that, his firm was expecting to sell around about $1 billion of Greek yogurt. And Greek yogurt in the States had gone from negligible sales to nearly half of the yogurt that was sold in the US, and got the major food manufacturers absolutely scurrying to play catch up. He's continuing to innovate now. He has incubators that, no pun intended, that provide a forum for testing and rapid acceleration of new ideas. He even has a bench, so to speak, for people to come and bring their ideas and test them. And so, if you go to my next slide, please. In this talk, what I just want to give you is some personal reflections on four things. I want to talk about budget. I want to talk about being close to customers. I want to talk about systemic innovation, and I want to talk about enthusiasm, passion, and can-do. And just those four themes. I could talk about a lot longer, I'm absolutely sure, but those are just four personal reflections. So if we go to the first, the next slide, please. So first of all, sometimes there is a temptation to think that you've got to have huge amounts of dosh in order to do innovation. And I suppose probably the thing to reflect on Hamdi Ulukaya is that he did not have huge amounts of money. If we talk about food, some of the cleverest recent ideas in food have come from upstarts. So for those of you who have kids over the past 10 years, I would be sure that you would have been buying Ella's Kitchen pouches or Plum Organics. As pouches of baby food, a really, really small business. If you go back, think about Innocent, the smoothie manufacturer, that was a very, very small business, as also was Keurig as well. Now, as it happens, Keurig now part of Pepsi, Innocent now part of Coca-Cola. That has been a very common way for large firms to innovate, is to acquire upstarts. So to come back to my first point, budget, you have to have budget to innovate. You cannot just do it in a vacuum. This graph shows where the UK sits in terms of the number of researchers working on R&D within the UK, and also the proportionate spend in comparison to GDP. This is UNESCO figures, and so you can see that the UK is higher than some, a long way further behind than others. Budget, you have to have it, but it is absolutely not critically important. You can innovate without having enormous sums of money, which goes to my next slide, please. My second point is what you do absolutely have to be for innovation is close to customers. And again, if I take you back to my Chobani case study right at the start, Chobani is just a really great example of spotting a niche, being close to customers, taking that from maybe from other regions and applying that faster. And if I want to go that right to the northernmost extreme, if you go to Amazon, Jeff Bezos, if you hear him talk, he will say that of their 4 guiding principles of a business, they are absolutely obsessed about customers, customer obsession. And the point that I thought was really interesting, if you hear Jeff Bezos talk, is he will talk about customer obsession, not competitor obsession. His view is that many pieces of innovation that business and authorities do is done because a competitor is doing something, so therefore we have to play catch up. And if you look on and read these sorts of articles, Jeff Bezos will say, whenever we have tried to do something in a Me Too fashion, we have failed. And so being close to customers and being ahead, critical number 2. So if we just then think about just some examples, if we go to the next slide, of what might we think if we're going to be customer obsessive within a transport world. This, I think, is probably one of my most favorite graphs that I see. It is UK Google searches for something. Now, again, I probably won't do a show of hands, but just take a quick think about whether that is, in your mind, searches for my house price, searches for healthy, searches for whiskey, or searches for petrol price. And if you searched and you thought that was healthy, then that is the right answer. This is UK Google searches for healthy. There's a serious point and a flippant point. The serious point is the progressive increase year on year in increase in interest in health, and that maybe explains the demand for active travel and the like. The flippant point, which I just love, is the heartbeat, which is January the 1st every year, and then the gradual bleed away in enthusiasm and interest year on year over the course of the year, maybe with a tiny blip in July. Next slide, please. Another piece in terms of just thinking about customer and really relevant for local authorities is this is Department of Health survey data that's published each year on disabilities. 1 in 9 in the UK now says that they consider themselves to have a disability. And the piece that I find really fascinating is the growth in mental health disabilities, up by about 60% over the past 7 years. This is Department for Health stats. And what I find really interesting, particularly relevant in terms of keeping close to customer and also responding to this, is just to think about the transport networks that we have. They are very, very well designed for physical disabilities, but still, to my mind, thinking just so much opportunity in terms of mental health and designing networks that if you suffer from mental disabilities, then being able to still get around and travel and make the most of the community. Next slide, please. And then, of course, the third big area, which you would all know about, is the UK's commitment to be a net zero economy in 30 years, or for those of you in Scotland, in 25 years. And if you want to look at where transport is, quite a well-trodden graph, so to speak, that blue line running straight across the middle, the past 30 years, emissions from transport have barely budged in the last 30 years. We have to get that to zero in 30 years. And we have to get that to zero in 30 years by modal shift. Baroness Vere talked about electric vehicles. We need to have a strategy for HGVs as well, and that has to be done in a way that is better and improving quality of life for our customers and for local authority customers and the like as well. As well as the transport mode themselves, We also, the concrete, the cement, the steel that we use in maintaining the network, and the asphalt, that also has to be net zero as well. There is just massive opportunity for innovation. Those of you that supply Highways England will know that WSP is part of a consortia working to develop Highways England's net zero strategy at the moment. We talked at a supply chain event on that last week. So, and if you just think about from a local authority perspective, all of the opportunities that to respond to the climate emergencies that they have declared. Just enormous innovation opportunity there to deliver that, and in a way that is better for customers and does not completely blow budgets as well. Next slide, please. So there are just a small selection of 3. There are a bunch of other ones that we will be tracking within WSP as well that drive that drive our innovation work as well. Being close to customer, key thing, and not just doing me too in terms of what competitors are doing. Area 3, next slide, please. So budget is important, but not essential. Keeping close to customers is absolutely fundamental. The third area I'd suggest is being systematic. And here I'll take you to Walmart and some work that we did with Walmart on their global refrigeration strategy. Refrigeration might seem a fairly dull business, but Walmart spends $1.8 billion a year chilling food, and leaks of high global warming chilling gas for most retailers until recently had a higher carbon footprint than their truck fleet. So a massive area for innovation, no difficulty getting business case. The thing that I thought was really interesting about this is as part of that strategy, we developed a very, very systematic test, pilot, deploy framework to have a pipeline of innovation that we took from idea through to being out on the stores. Very systematic, keeping corporate memory. It meant that you could take an idea and you had an innovation process to take it through. And we know that, for example, with Northants, we've been doing a similar exercise on highway innovation as well. And it just provides a good framework for fast action. And again, just means that you're putting some systematic elements around that. And then next slide, please. And my fourth and last area I wanted just to reflect on is also, you can have the processes, you can have the systems, you can have the customers and the customer insight, but there is nothing to beat enthusiasm, passion, can-do, persistence in taking forwards innovation. And this really, I suppose, is probably some of my personal reflection from coming up with the idea, launching and then embedding Future Ready across WSP, that went from an initial idea of we will see the future more clearly and then challenge our 50,000 engineers across the world to design for that today. That was an idea that we had 5 years ago. It is now today the golden thread through our global strategy across the world, giving WSP enormous purpose. So I can be proud of that, and it's helping our business grow this year. Future Ready has helped us in WSP win £52 million of work. But let's be absolutely clear, there's been some rocky pieces along the way on that. And it has absolutely, as well as having logic, it has required persistence. It has absolutely required teams across the world to be developing persuasive arguments, to be focusing on the white page rather than the black dot, as sometimes can be done. It's about not taking no for an answer, being sure that this is something that is the right way forwards. And you can proceduralize all of that you want, but fundamentally that is that human passion and that human advances that is utterly necessary in order to have that culture of innovation that you are taking forwards. Last slide, please. So in conclusion, I could have talked for a lot longer, but from Greek yogurt to coffee, to Walmart, to the great work that you're doing as part of these ADEPT innovation trials. There isn't a magic bullet for innovation. I've shared 4 ideas with you there. There could be many more. But congratulations to the work that you have done, and to all of you for the innovation that you've done. I've been looking at it with interest and talking with Giles and a number of you as part of that. Yeah, really looking forward to your conclusions and the next steps and the progress that you continue to make. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, David. Now, if I'd had to lay a £5 bet on what you'd lead off with, I would have lost, because I wasn't anticipating Greek yogurt, or any kind of yogurt for that matter, but some fascinating insight. Thank you. We've got a few minutes. I wonder if I might just reflect a little on your 4 lessons around investment spend, the customer obsession, be systematic, and enthusiasm, passion. If you were to look into the highways and infrastructure sector in the UK, public and private sector, and you were to score out of 10 those 4 factors in the sector, how do you rate us at the moment?
I think it's. I think I'll resist the temptation to score you out of 10, Neil, because I think that might be hard. I think if I reflect on the sector, I think that local authority highways is now at such an interesting junction with tight cash, the opportunity from COVID to be doing things differently, which many local authorities are, the amazing new technologies that are coming forward in terms of new mobility, and that absolute essential in that legal requirement to deliver net zero, coupled with climate change, means that there is just a tremendous opportunity to look forwards and to be really building on the work that ADEPT and this program has been doing. I think sometimes, maybe with all sectors, larger organizations, not just in the highway sector, are poor innovators because they have a dominant position. I think there is the opportunity to respond to those, and for local authorities and suppliers like WSP to really step up and show how it can be done differently, better, and a better service for customers.
You should consider a career in politics, David. I think I read into that that whether it be through national policy like zero carbon targets, whether it be through managing crisis, greatest innovation in crisis and war like COVID, there is the opportunity to do more with little, be more customer obsessed, be more systematic, and be even more passionate and enthusiastic than we are as a sector at the moment. So room for improvement would be my interpretation. If I asked you to give us, of those 4 lessons, the one that you think the sector needed to concentrate on above all else as a springboard for innovation, improvement, move forward, would there be one in particular?
I kind of think that there's probably an opportunity from top to bottom to think about customers more than anything else. Customers to be, I suppose, probably at both levels. I think for firms like WSP to be even close to some of the imperatives that our clients have in highways authorities, and then also, from a position of not working deep in the sector with local authorities, to be even closer to their residents and to really understand that actually what more can we be doing to make their lives better, to live lives easier, and to be spending their money really wisely.
Brilliant. Thank you, David. And sorry to put you on the spot with those final questions. I vacillated between customer obsession and passion. I think the two are probably lean on each other a little bit. Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much for your contribution. Very much appreciated. I'm not sure if you're going to hang around with us or you've got other stuff to do, but again, many thanks for your contribution today.
Pleasure. Thank you, Neil.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to see so many, well, not to see, to have so many of you in this virtual room attending what is our first Live Labs exposition. So my name's Hannah Bartram. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for ADEPT, which, in case you were not already aware, actually, is a professional membership body for directors of environment, economy, planning and transport from county, unitary and combined authorities across England, along with directors of LEPs, and corporate partners drawn from the private sector. So I'm going to be giving you a whistle-stop tour of how the Live Labs programme came about and the journey so far. And just to say, just referring to the quiz actually, I did really badly. I only got 2 out of 5, which is a bit of a sad indictment really, but there you go. I've revealed my secret, guilty secret there. So this slide you can see now. So where and when did it all start? So early in 2017, we established, we being ADEPT, established this Smart Places Research Programme to examine the opportunities and challenges facing the adoption of digital technology across the local highway network. So our starting point was digital innovation and smart data use had the potential to really revolutionise our localities and the highway system, to improve roads, network management and the user experience, which of course David has just been talking to. The road user is the customer in this case, and also to contribute to the UK's future success in the global economy. So that was our starting point. And we felt that it was really important that along with working with the Department for Transport, that we engaged or involved the private sector. So we approached some of our corporate partners. So we invited Kia, Ringway, Atkins and O2 to join us, followed at a later date by WSP and EY. And I think their continued support and involvement in is a key strength of the programme, as they've stayed with us throughout the whole journey from 2017. Phase 1 of the programme culminated in the publication of the document you see there on the screen, The Route to the Highway Systems of the Future, in October 2017. And the main conclusion of the report was that without proactive intervention, the significant benefits of digital and technological innovation on the local road network would progress slowly and in a piecemeal way. And that blue box that you can see, that is taken from the document at that time when we published it. So the Live Labs programme grew out of our desire to accelerate innovation in the local roads sector. Can I have the next slide, please, Helen? So phase 2 was a further developmental stage, resulting in a prospectus which invited local authority members of ADEPT to submit an expression of interest for the programme. And we received 28 bids from 34 local authorities across the country. Those that made it onto the shortlist were then put through a Dragon's Den assessment with an independent panel of dragons. And it really was a pretty intense day. It was a 10 minutes presentation, 15 minutes question, and that was it. That was you're out the door. Finally, in January 2019, and with the support of the Transport Minister Jessie Norman, who is pictured here on the screen, along with the support of some key civil servants, we were able to announce that we had secured £250 million from the DfT to fund 8 Live Lab projects, which when you consider at the beginning we were hoping to fund 3 or 4 was an amazing success. So these were projects to be led by local authorities, working in partnership with academia and the private sector, piloting innovation across 4 broad themes of smart materials, communication, energy and mobility. And a critical element would be sharing insights, learning and application throughout the life of the programme. That was a really important part for us. Next slide, please. So the Live Labs programme was formally launched in May 2019. And you can see from the map down the bottom the location of those 8 Live Labs. So you've got Buckinghamshire, Central Bedfordshire, Cumbria, Kent, Reading, Transport for West Midlands working with Solihull and Birmingham, Staffordshire and Suffolk, so across the country. And this slide is illustrating how the programme has taken shape and solidified over the past 18 months. So there's activity going on in over 115 locations. We've got 70 plus suppliers involved. The chart on the right hand side is illustrating the mix of suppliers that are involved. And so there's a sensors, management systems and analytics feature highly, as you can see, but also there's others in there like data suppliers, air quality, academic institutions, for example. And the pie chart on the other side is showing the relative focus of the live labs as per the 4 themes of mobility, energy, communications and material, but also there's an emerging theme coming out which is focusing on the environment. So I think it's been a bit bumpy ride at times. It hasn't always been smooth going. So, for example, the flexibility of the funding didn't always sit that easily alongside internal accounting processes within local authorities. So, key lesson learnt: involve your finance and procurement colleagues very early on. That was critical, or has proved to be critical. Changes in personnel. So this is not just obviously officers changing. It was also within the political sphere. We're very keen that each of the live labs had the support of their elected members. So we asked, for example, when we did the Dragon's Den, that they brought their leader of their council or their portfolio holder. And of course, with the electoral cycle being what it is, those elected members change as well. So changes in personnel has been something to contend with. And then there's been things like complex partnerships to cement and difficult negotiations to manage. So those have kind of had to be worked through. But I think overall, I know the positives have far outweighed the challenges. The Baroness referred to the end of year 1 report, and I would recommend you look at that because this captures all of the information I'm sharing with you now. We did ask the live labs for their advice for those considering entering into an innovation programme, and just a handful of their reflections include quotes like, "Go for it, be flexible and enter with your eyes wide open." And I think that comes back to David Simon's point around kind of enthusiasm and passion. Failure is not a bad thing. I think that's really important. I think it's probably fair to say many authorities are quite risk averse, and here we were encouraging them to not to see non-success as a bad thing. It was a learning process. And then the final quote is, "Innovation by its very nature means you cannot know the outcomes," which relates to the comment about, it doesn't matter if you don't fail, you need to learn from it. And we've had international interest in the programme and some really fascinating and unexpected links into other local authority service areas, which I won't go into anymore because I know they'll be talking about it later. So I would really recommend you visit the ADEPT website to read some of the blogs the live labs have been posting over the last 18 months. There's some really interesting sort of short summaries of work that they've been doing. But I won't go any more into what individual live labs have been focusing on because they're up next, and I'll be handing you over. Next slide, please, Helen. So when we launched the Live Labs programme in May 2019, I don't think anybody could have predicted the extraordinary times that we now found ourselves in. And that did, of course, present some initial challenges for the programme. So, for example, some of the projects found that equipment was being held by suppliers because shipping staff had been furloughed. There were manufacturing constraints impacting on supply chains, that it was proving difficult to get workers on site because of social distancing measures. But it did also offer up some opportunities to refocus. So, for example, one of the live labs was testing data-led innovation to mitigate the effects of rising traffic conditions, including air quality. And that project is now refocusing on the unexpected benefits of reduced traffic. The live lab teams have had to adapt to new ways of working, including online working. And I think everybody's probably got Teams and Zoom fatigue. However, it has meant that there has been no lost time incurred by travelling, which has meant some aspects of some of the projects has been able to accelerate it. We're capturing the impacts of COVID-19 through the monitoring and evaluation programme that we're running. And we hope very much that that will also assist future innovation programmes which may be impacted by shock events, but let's hope it's never another pandemic. And I think the Baroness referred to this too. COVID-19 has meant that there's been an extension to the programme. It had originally been meant to finish in May 2021 as a 2-year programme, but there's an extension now until May 2021, although a number of the projects are still aiming towards finishing in spring of 21 anyway. Next slide, please, Helen. So I referenced the monitoring and evaluation process, and just to explain what that is. So we're running a very rigorous evaluation process where it's carried out 4 times a year. So every other 3 months it's done by the Live Labs themselves, and then every other 3 months there's an independent assessment. So it's pretty thorough, and we're gathering some great deep feedback from those assessments. So what that process has also highlighted are some stretch aspirations for the Live Labs, and they're listed on the slide there in front of you. So the importance of communications, simple to say and not always so simple to deliver, actually. So this is communications both internally and externally, by each of the Live Labs and by ADEPT itself, actually, and by whatever means possible. So from a program management point of view, we have a scheduled program of white papers, of blogs, of articles, and we use whatever media we can get our hands on. So we have a Twitter account, a bespoke Twitter account for the Live Labs, LinkedIn, the ADEPT website, and we're now in the modern age, we have a YouTube account as well. And of course, events such as this. So it's amazing that so many of you have kind of tuned in to listen. Learning to share, this has been an unexpected finding, actually, in that there's been a reticence, or there was a reticence to ask for help, even from the other Live Lab teams. So it's, I think it's fair to say it's taken some time to break down those barriers, but they are now collaborating and sharing their effort. And of course, as you would imagine, that is helping to reduce effort, to eliminate duplication, and to streamline approaches. Capitalising on innovation, and so Neil will be picking up on this a bit later, but in essence, we want the Live Labs to be thinking about how the application of the technology and solutions that they're currently testing and trialling, and to document their learning in a way that allows an off-the-shelf approach for others. So it's almost like you take a kind of a business plan off the shelf. That's how you want to implement this particular innovation, whether it's sensors or plastics in roads or thermal power under a road or whatever it might be. And then last but not least, developing the brand. So we're very keen to take the Live Labs brand and to extend it to other areas of ADEPT's work. ADEPT has a huge portfolio of interest, reflecting the nature of place directors' roles, so environment, economy, planning and transport. So for example, we've been working up a proposition or proposal for a zero carbon Live Lab program, because we've learned a lot from the way we've developed and are implementing this program, and we'd like to see whether we could apply that in other areas of our world. But it's now the turn of the Live Lab project managers to introduce themselves and the detail of the projects. So I'm going to hand you over to Jason Pavey.
Good morning, thanks Hannah, and good morning everybody. Welcome to this session of the Live Labs. So I'm Jason Pavey, I'm Market Director for Local Transport with Atkins, and as Hannah's talked already, we've been running this programme since 2017. I've had personal involvement, so it's a real pleasure to facilitate this session where we'll get an overview and quick fire session with all 8 Live Labs. So it's 4 minutes-ish per Live Lab, 8 presenters. What could go wrong over the next half hour or more. What Hannah's just described really, I think, is very much that we're living in a VUCA world, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And I think that's really apt as we go through the next 8 Live Labs, because this is the environment actually that we try to actively create in each lab, to succeed, fail, and importantly learn and scale, as Hannah's been describing. And I think if you add COVID, coming back to one of Hannah's slides earlier, actually it's VUCA on steroids, and that's the environment that the Live Labs have been operating in. So bear that in mind as we run through this session. So first up, we're going to do this in alphabetical order. I'm hoping we've got Buckinghamshire and Zoe coming on to give us a quick elevator pitch of the Live Lab, and then we'll have a couple of questions. So over to you, Zoe.
Morning. So there's been a lot going on in Bucks with our Live Lab, from the development of the composite modular lighting columns and the development of the mesh network that will have within it the gully sensors and the flood management system, so we can improve our day-to-day visibility across that network. Linked to that, we have our adult social care piece that's looking at how we can support the vulnerable residents within Buckinghamshire to stay within their homes for longer and remain independent for longer. We've also got work looking at energy, so the kinetic energy recovery road, the solar and wind energy generation, as well as the e-bikes rental scheme that's up and running at the moment. So there's a lot going on, and all of it's being looked at how it can be viable going forward and how we can share that learning with the wider ADEPT network. So there's all sorts going on in Bucks.
That's great, thanks, Zoe. So with such a sort of vast range of innovations that you're piloting, I'm just interested in what do you see as, what's a great outcome for the programme?
I think if you look at something like the e-bikes rental scheme, since week 1, it's had people using it. So we managed to get the comms out about it really successfully and had it in place so people can go up the Greenway within Buckinghamshire and go to Wasden Manor, which is one of our national trust sites. So I think what's been really good is how we've managed to create things that are living and live and are accessible to our residents and have been a plus for the local community because it's been proved by the fact they've been used. I think that's been a real benefit.
That's great, thank you. And as Hannah was saying, some of the programmes have been extended because we've actually been in very difficult, challenging times. Have you had any early benefits that you'd like to share with the audience? So
I think for us, an early benefit is the fact that with everything that's been going on and some of the challenges we've had, so we've had challenges around the fact that our procurement process is quite complicated and kind of it makes innovating at speed quite difficult. I think for us an early benefit has been the fact that we have got some things that are up and running and live, like the e-bikes. We've got our composite lighting columns that are signed off by British EN to be the standard so they can be implemented and everything like that. So I think with everything that's gone on, we've managed to still move forward and innovate and develop things and work with stakeholders within the authority, like with the adult social care piece. We've still been able to carry on moving forward despite everything that's going on. I think it's been a real benefit to our kind of area of working as well as kind of some of the wider areas of the authority.
And Zoe, your personal role in Live Labs and what's it been like from a personal perspective, experiencing working in a very different way, hopefully?
I think it's been really enjoyable. It's been, as I've mentioned, it's been quite fast paced, which I think it's been a very new way of working because I've previously come across from adult social care to do the piece of work that I'm doing within the Live Lab. So it's been really enjoyable to do this fast paced piece of work that involves so much learning from each other and working together with other authorities, which you don't always get the opportunity to do with other pieces of work and other projects. So I think that's been a real positive of working it within this Live Lab.
That's great. So really interesting you've come across from adult services. It shows how actually the transferability between different departments and partners. Just probably getting towards my last question for this session, but if it wasn't for ADEPT Live Labs, and creating both the funding but also the infrastructure to help facilitate and encourage, do you think would you have an organisation done something in this space without it, or is this part of what you've done historically?
So I think that's a really good question. It's really interesting to think about because if you use the adult social care example, we wouldn't as an authority have you come from kind of a transport perspective to try and look at some of the problems within adult social care. It's just not something that we historically as an authority would have done, or I don't think many authorities would do. So I think it's given us a major opportunity that we wouldn't otherwise have had. So yeah, it's definitely given us a new and interesting way of working and a way to start developing those links across the organisation that are really important moving forward in how we innovate and what we do for our residents, whether they be people who've just moved here, vulnerable residents, anything like that, and how we can create this kind of wraparound for all working together towards the same sort of goals.
So that's great. We're out of time, but thank you very much for sharing that. And I know in the programme agenda there's some contact details, so I'm sure there's opportunities to be able to follow up. Zoe, thank you, and we wish you well with next steps on that programme. And I'm hoping now we can be joined by Central Bedfordshire.
Good morning. Am I live?
You are, Jack. Good morning and welcome. Jack, do you want to give us the elevator pitch? What are you doing on your Live Labs?
Yeah, so at Central Bedfordshire Council, we're working with our partners to trial 3 smart energy techniques within a live environment. So yeah, we're really excited to be trialing renewable energy techniques, and the three sort of techniques that we're focusing on are kinetic, thermal, and solar. We've been working with our term service contractor Ringway Jacobs, and together we both believe that, you know, innovation is critical in highways and the industry. And we've been using this project to sort of, with the aim to understand the efficiency of each area and potentially how we could scale those up and roll them out to other areas and sort of use them more freely within highways. And yeah, like many other people here today, reducing our carbon footprint has obviously become a really key priority for us as a council. So yeah, I'm really happy to say that works are now beginning for both kinetic and thermal, and then solar should be in place early in 2021.
Great, and just to help the audience, Jack, where are you installing? You know, what does this look like on the actual network?
Yeah, so on the network, so the Kinetic Trial, which is quite exciting because that's actually at one of our local train stations in Leighton Buzzard with PaveGen. So that's going in this week, and so that'll be actually visible for our residents. Whereas the other two, they're taking part at the depot. So for example, the thermal trial, that'd be in our car park, and the idea of that will be to obviously heat up our ground, so we won't have to sort of put grit down, and also the energy from that would be used to sort of power our office as well. So yeah, some exciting trials, but yeah, only one at the moment will be out for the public to see.
Sure, no, that's great. And so what have you found as the biggest challenges, and have you overcome them so far?
I think probably like everyone on this call, I think COVID has been the biggest challenge to us. I don't think we're alone in that. But I think the biggest challenge with COVID has been that a number of our suppliers, they get their materials from France, especially Eurovia and Colas. So obviously at the start of lockdown, there's more difficult to get those sort of materials into our depot. So yeah, that caused a slight delay, but I'm happy to say we've sort of overcome that now.
That's great. And you mentioned pursuit around net zero and decarbonisation. Any thoughts as to, you know, how that might help, you know, from Central Bedfordshire's perspective, you know, quite a lot of linear assets. You know, is the hope to be able to scale this if they're successful?
Yeah, I think that's, like I said, that's our hope, especially in the, you know, with the you know, the way the governments go, like the policies and stuff. It's where we want to head and where we need to head for future generations. I think, for example, we'd like to be able to roll out the thermal heating, because that we're looking at potentially rolling that out to schools to sort of keep the playground safe, and then rolling it out to leisure services to ensure that people can stay healthy outside without having to worry too much about extreme weather. And then obviously, if we can get into a position to roll some of these out on our network, it could be you know, a massive saving for the environment.
No, great, thanks, Jack. My last question, you know, how many partners have you got, and how's bringing in, you know, different ideas? You talk about even materials and products from France, etc. You know, how's that been working for you?
It's worked quite well. We've got a number of partners on each one. So you know, we're working with obviously our contractor Ringway Jacobs, PaveGen, Eurovia, Colas, and then Cranfield University will be working with us to actually get all the results from each of the trials. So yeah, so we're doing that, and all our partners they're just as excited about these trials as we are. So they're sort of working hard to overcome the challenges, which is why COVID perhaps wasn't as big a challenge as it could have been.
Yeah, that's great, Jack. I think we're out of time, but great to hear we're getting some paving and surfacing on the ground this coming week, I think you said, or this week. So it'd be great to see how that performs. Jack, thanks for bringing that to life for us on this Live Labs event, and we wish you well for 2021. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. So now perhaps ask Cumbria to join us. Andy.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Andy, do you want to sort of give the audience an insight into Live Labs and what that means for Cumbria? What are you doing?
Yeah. Morning, everybody. My name's Andy Brown. I'm a senior manager at Cumbria County Council, and I'm leading on our project for this Live Labs. And it's really quite exciting for us because this project isn't just about developing a new product, which some of the Live Labs are. It's actually looking at the potential of how we could roll that out and understand all of the issues associated with using waste plastic as an end product into local roads. So the project that we're working on is looking at the performance of the material, the product, the economic benefits to see whether that has any wider benefits, but clearly the wider environmental impact in terms of a circular economy, not only for highways authorities, but for the waste authorities as well. So the piece of work that we're doing is capturing all three of those aspects.
That's great. Thanks, Andy. You talk about the circular economy and linkage with waste, which sort of feels like a system approach. Can you just bring that to life a little bit? You know, how have you managed to bring those different components together?
Yeah, so clearly, as part of the products development, there are wider benefits to just the performance of the material. So we're testing the material in terms of how it works, not only in the laboratory when it's being laid and on the ground, but looking at the wider environmental and economic factors associated with the waste industry. So we collectively, globally, have a significant waste problem with dealing with plastic waste. So we're working closely with our partners, with a number of different waste authorities, to understand what the financial benefits would be for converting that waste plastic that currently goes to landfill or incineration to actually be reusing that and scaling it up onto local roads. And that's certainly been something that we've developed closely with not only our waste industry partners, our supply chain in terms of Macreba, who's one of our SMEs, and you'll hear about Toby later on, but also some of our academic partners. So we're bringing into this project quite a number of academic partners to assist and understand exactly how that waste product can be moved forward from an idea into reality.
That's great. And Andy, have you installed and laid any materials yet? And the second part of the question is, if you have, you know, when might you know whether it's starting to give you the results that you're hoping for?
Yeah, well, we've done two pieces of work actually, Jason. What we've done is we've captured all of the data that exists on plastic trials that have been done across the country. So colleagues who might be on this call this morning will be aware that they may have trialed plastic as a waste product into their asphalt mix. So we've collected all of that information. There's about 30 authorities around the country. We've brought all of that information together so that we've got a definitive set of information on those sites. In Cumbria, we're trialling around 12 sites altogether. We've been working with supply chain for 3 or 4 years now, but what we're wanting to do is ensure that we've got robust testing and laboratory condition testing, if you like, so that we've got a definitive set of results that we can present as part of this Live Labs. To date, we've laid quite a number of sites around the county. We've laid 4 or 5 sites, and as I say, we've got another 4 or 5 to go. Those are deliberately being located in locations where we've got adverse weather, and being in Cumbria, we get a bit of that. So we're looking at not only high ground where we may be susceptible to frost, but also where we may have water penetration, so where we have localized river flooding. So pulling together a package of sites and testing those is the piece of work that we're on with at the moment. But the performance of the products, initial results are that it is performing as good as, if not better than, if we weren't including plastic as a waste additive.
That's great, Andy. We're almost out of time. Just one comment. I think it's great to do that. Let's look at what's been done before and how do we gather that intelligence and information, so we're learning and moving on rather than restarting from scratch. So yeah, fantastic. So Andy, we'll leave that there for now. Thank you. As with the others, you know, we wish you well, and let's hope the winter in one way tests you, but not too much from a winter maintenance perspective. So good luck. Thanks,
Okay,
Andy.
thanks. Cheers now.
Thanks for joining us. Great. We should now be joined, hopefully, by Kent.
Morning.
Hey, good morning, Carol. Thanks for joining us. Carol, would you like to let the audience know what you've been doing on Live Labs from your perspective, please?
Yes, I'm Carol Valentine. I'm the Highways Project Manager leading on the Live Labs project in Kent. And our project is the Highways Asset Data Management System. And essentially what the project is trying to, our aims, I guess, are to sort of transform the way that we deliver the highway service. So the project seeks to embed technology in everything that we do in highways. And we're doing this by the creation of a cloud-based platform. So the platform ingests lots of data from various data sources across highways. And all that data is analysed and then it's visualised on the HADMS system. So once we get that data, we're able to make intelligent decisions in a different way to the way that we're doing it now. So our aim is to actually improve the way we deliver our services going forward. A key part of the project, and I was interested in what was said earlier about the customer, is transforming the way that we deliver services to the customer. So part of the project is being able to develop a system whereby online people can get more information about what we do. The information from HADMS will be pulled into a system that the members of the public can use. So that's what we're doing in the HADMS project.
That's great. Thanks, thanks, Carol. And so from what the work done so far, have you started to receive any data that you've from the pilot, and if so, any early indications of the value that might add?
Well, we've got lots of data sources that we're pulling in, everything from traffic, transport. We've got drones. We've got all sorts of sensor data that's being brought in. One of our early successes is we put some sensors out on the network for picking up road surface temperature. All of that together with our transport data, we're able to look at that and see where the gritters are, have they done the job they need to do. Now that we're into the winter season, that's actually been visualised on our platform. So we'll be able to use that throughout the season immediately to see whether we're complying with doing the routes the way that we need to do them. So that's an immediate benefit. We're also displaying lots of other data on the platform at the moment. And what I found really exciting is because we've developed the platform already, many of our managers are using that. They're using it, they're giving us feedback on efficiency of the gangs, how we're using our highway stewards out on the network. So that's been really good. So that's feedback that we're getting from them. We're using that to continue to improve the platform.
That's great, Carol. And a really important point I think you just raised there about how people use systems and data, because we can provide lots of data, but actually the culture of wanting to use and improve is interesting. Is there any tips for people in the audience that around how you've engaged with some of your own teams and partners in that space?
Yeah, I think what's really important with any innovation programme, particularly in local government, is you've got to get people on board. So working with our partners, Amy, we did a very robust discovery process. So we weren't trying to guess what the challenges were that we have in delivering our highway service. We engaged with partners and managers across the business, everything from public transport to scheme delivery to people that find the potholes. That way we could identify where did we have gaps in our data. So we've got lots of data that we can analyse, but we had to create new data sources so we're able to solve those problems and the challenges that people have. So that's been really useful for us. So we've been able to target. So for example, we're looking at, is there another way that we can pick up potholes? So we've got one of our innovations is putting some equipment onto our buses and onto vans, and then that's picking up the sort of vehicle displacement. So can we use that in the future to determine where our potholes are, rather than sending somebody out maybe on a high-speed road? So that's a sort of engagement. That's how it's helped us to define what we're doing in the project.
No, that's great. Thanks, Carol. And just last question, if you're giving advice to the audience, somebody in the audience perhaps thinking about starting an innovative type project, what would be your advice?
I think getting the right partners on board is really important if you haven't got that experience in-house. And I think getting the right people involved, I've talked about getting our managers involved, but you know, casting your net quite widely to make sure that you've got the right people involved. And I think as well is having that appetite for risk. I think that, you know, some things will work, some things won't work. That's absolutely fine. But I think just go out there and do it. Be clear of what your objectives are. You may fail along the way, but learn from that and then use that to improve, to help you to go forward.
That's brilliant advice, Carol. Thank you. We come to the end of that, the time for Kent, but brilliant. Thank you for your insights, and we wish you well for 2021. Thanks, Carol. So now I believe we will have Staffordshire. Hi, Louise. Hi, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Louise, do you want to bring your live lab to life for the audience?
Please. In Staffordshire, our live labs is called Simulate, and the entire programme addresses two key challenges for Staffordshire, one around mobility and one around air quality. We took the view that traditional procurement methods of obtaining new technologies were hindering and stifling innovation. So what we didn't want to do was actually decide what the solutions would be to the challenges initially. So we went through a 3-month process of developing a challenge creation. That involved all the partners in Simulate. So that was ourselves as a local authority, Amy as our strategic partner, Keele University, as well as our districts as well, because we're a 2-tier authority. It took us a couple of months to get there, and it was challenging at the time. But I think the time was well spent, because what that enabled us to do was provide detailed challenges to share with the market to stimulate that innovation and interest. And actually we were oversubscribed. So I think one of our biggest successes to date has been the fact that we had 130 SMEs bidding into our challenge programme, which was a huge success. So where are we now? We currently have 11 SMEs that we've brought onto the programme to incubate and trial in live lab scenarios up and down Staffordshire. We have 3 AQMA areas, so air quality management areas, which we've sensorised with Earth Sense air quality sensors. We have 2 green walls, which we're about to deploy just after Christmas, and 2 micro-mobility operators, which have already gone live, so one in Stafford and one up in Newcastle, and you'll hear all about Ginger and their e-scooter operation in Stafford a bit later on this morning. We have 6 demand responsive simulations, 2 are underway at the moment, and that's really exciting. And we also have an electric vehicle car share club and pop-up electric vehicle chargers, which we're about to deploy in the coming weeks. So it's hugely exciting. And for me personally, actually, something Baroness Vere referred to earlier was about Staffordshire's desire and aspirations for mobility hubs and the deployment of mobility hubs and nodes in a rural county like ours. So we're just about to complete the 2nd feasibility study, which will help inform our strategy on mobility hubs for Staffordshire going forward.
Brilliant, Louise. Thank you. I can't believe 130 SMEs. That's incredible. How do you keep on board that goodwill? So you've brought 11 through. You know, are you doing anything to be able to try and keep tapping into, you know, what it sounds like a swell of support for you?
We absolutely are, Jason. And we're actually hoping to bring through a couple of more SMEs onto the programme, because what we've found actually, and it was something that David referenced earlier, is innovation doesn't always require huge amounts of money, and innovation propagates innovation. So what we've found is people want to work with us. We've got live testbed areas out there right now, and some of the SMEs don't actually need funding to test or trial their innovative idea. So we're just looking at what that might allow us to do now as a programme. We're also looking at future funding and how we can then take the trials, which won't be completed until the latter part of next year, but take those trials, share the learning across the ADEPT group and other LAs, and how we can scale those commercially where possible. So there's a huge amount of work and thinking taking place now about what we can do to support some of those other SMEs and ideas.
That's great. And Louise, just in perhaps 30 seconds or so, you talked about green walls. Perhaps you can just which I think you're talking about putting in place pretty soon. So do you want to just outline what they are?
So we have a green wall solution going outside a primary school alongside a busy concrete ring road in Newcastle, and a moss wall that will be deployed near a care home in Burton. And those are both quite different trials actually, and we're hoping to prove through the trial that those solutions do clean the air and make a difference in those locations. So that's the main purpose of the trial, to address some of our quality issues. But working with our academic partners, Keele, we're also going to undertake a study to understand the wider benefits of green walls. So from the aesthetics point of view, whether it makes people feel differently, travel differently, use the area differently. So again, that's hugely exciting. And we're not deploying till after Christmas, really, just because of weather complications and being able to actually get hold of the green moss. I think that the time of year plays quite an important part in that. So yeah, very exciting.
Louise, thank you. We're out of time, but what a great way of tapping into the insights of huge numbers of SMEs and other partners across a whole variety of different pilots. So thank you for that, and yeah, we'll look out for those photos and feedback on the green walls as well. Thank you. Thanks, Louise. Thank you. If I could ask Suffolk to come and join the panel, that'd be brilliant.
Hello, Jason. How are you?
Hello, Richard. Hi. Thanks, Richard. Do you want to let the audience know a little bit about what you're doing as part of Live Labs in Suffolk?
Yes, certainly. So as part of the Smarter Suffolk project, the County Council are looking to deploy sensors at scale and in different environments. So that's areas such as urban areas, rural and coastal locations. And the purpose being to understand whether services currently delivered can be revolutionised to offer efficiency gains, savings and an increased service to the public. So this will be achieved by working closely with our key partners. So that's academia in the form of the University of Suffolk, the BSI Improving Services. The idea being that we'll provide individual business cases that demonstrate the benefits and of course any disbenefits of the technology being deployed. So it's quite early days, but we've had some early successes. So we've developed bespoke terms and conditions and non-disclosure agreements, and they've been quite well received, which is very promising. But we're also starting to receive big data. I didn't quite appreciate what big data was until this project, but we've been fortunate to have the opportunity to explore a range of solutions. As I mentioned, it's at scale for each use case. I mean, the amount of data received now is quite phenomenal. We just now need to analyse it. So interesting times.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. And so out of, do you have any particular hopes, sort of what you've started to deploy and the learning so far in the programme? What any particular areas that you think will give you more benefit than others?
Yes, so we've deployed adaptive lighting at the moment. We've actually started to realise some of the energy savings. So lights obviously adapting as road use increases and decreases, and subsequently we are actually seeing those savings. That's very promising. From a personal point of view, as someone who's been carrying out winter service since 2 o'clock this morning, I'm quite interested in the road surface temperature side of things. So we've deployed a number of road surface temperature sensors at scale in different environments as well. So we're putting them near existing weather stations to get a control point. They're actually plotting them along gritting routes as well. So we'll be getting granular data, and hopefully we could be reducing the number of gritting operations we carry out, and I can get some more sleep.
Richard, that's great, and yeah, a bit of a well-being moment there, and thank you for joining us then in that case. My final question for you is, in terms of your key partners that you've been working with, how's that? I suppose what's the success criteria, do you think, that's started to make that gel together towards this pilot?
We've worked very close with our key partners, and I think in all my time we've never worked so closely with people. I think early engagement was key. So we've worked closely, like I said, with the University of Suffolk, and we needed to make sure that the trials are meaningful. And I think one of the early things I can actually tell people to take on board is that know your limitations. My knowledge is extremely limited, and it's working with these key partners to actually ingest more knowledge, make sure those trials are meaningful, and to take on things like developing the dashboard. Knowledge on dashboards is quite limited at the moment, but we work with BT to make sure that we can ingest the data in a consistent form. We work with the BSI at the moment. We had a really engaging workshop yesterday to understand some of the challenges in the smart places arena that we actually hadn't taken on board to start with. We're looking at things like access agreements and asset portfolios as we move forward with one of our partners, Proving Services, because when this project is over, we actually want to keep the momentum going and develop more sensors, more things to install, and obviously realise greater savings.
Yeah, and just finally, Richard, just some of the synergies across the live labs that we've heard on this call and in more detail offline. You know, so you talked about winter maintenance and sensors, etc. But do you have any views as to how best to join up, or any activity about joining up across live labs?
Yes, I mean, I've been quite surprised through talking to other live labs just of how much work they've done both on this project and previous projects. So what we're trying to do is share some of the data from this project and previous works we've undertaken to try and reinforce the learning we're having now. So if you take gullies, for example, we've worked closely with Kent, and we're sharing that data so that the insights that we find through our data, does that compare to their data as well? And again, the more data we have, obviously the greater the learning will be.
Brilliant, Richard, thank you. Perfect timing as well, and hope you get some sleep later and the winter's kind to you. So thank you, Richard, and really
thank you, Jason.
Great, thank you. So if I could perhaps ask Thames Valley to join us now, please.
Hi, Jason.
Hello, Simon. Thanks for joining. Very floral in the background there, bright and sunny. Thank you. Cheer us up. Simon, would you like to take us through your live labs, please?
Yeah, our live labs came about really where we were approached by the commercial sector, by commercial partners that wanted to engage with us. They've seen the types of things that we've done across the Thames Valley region. This is with a particular focus on Berkshire. We have quite an ambitious project where we're picking up, it's data-led, so we're picking up all the sort of data that we generate. Berkshire is quite diverse in that we have some very big urban centres, you know, and you have all those sort of usual and typical tools in there, good public transport, good road networks, you know, encouraging people to think about their impact on how they travel, and encouraging modal shifts. So those things are kind of the normal things that we do as local authorities. But then, you know, the other side of that is we've got the very rural environment as well, where some of those urban things just simply don't exist. So it's reaching out as well and reaching, you know, and trying to encourage people to think about the impact that they're having on the environment. So our project brings together a number of streams. It's very much people focused. Our project is about the people for the people. So we're looking at health issues, we're looking at air quality and the impacts that people have, as I've just explained. We're looking at trying to encourage people to reduce their carbon footprint, and just really pulling everything together in a data source and putting it on a platform that is meaningful to people, that actually has value to people. And our data platform is created through what's called an insights platform provided by O2. So again, coming back to the role of local authorities, and this is where our project is quite ambitious. I think it's really difficult for local councils to keep plugging that, you know, sort of modal shift message. You know, it can get a bit worn, and do really people want to hear the same old message coming from government, from local government, whereas O2 as that outreach partner, if you like, has a much different relationship with their customer, and it could be a much more powerful message to get that across. So yeah, we have quite an ambitious project with an awful lot of partners as well.
That's great, thanks, Simon. So any early successes, Simon, that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I mean, successes is because ours is data led. I think that to pick something up that's actually quite tangible and to show people for a project like ours is going to come more to the end. The successes for us have been in where we've got to and the relationships that we've built. We had some challenges. I noted some of the challenges that Hannah mentioned in Hannah's section. Two of the challenges that Hannah mentioned that really do apply to ours. We had some problems around contracting, procurement, state aid issues for us. We got through those, of course we did, as a consortium together. So there's a much wider appreciation across both local government and our commercial partners as to the challenges of delivering a project like this. I think for our commercial partners, they had no concept at all as to some of the procurement issues in particular, some of those contractual issues that local government have to go through, that we're bound by law to achieve. But we got there, and a real success for us is the enthusiasm and the coming together that we had in our partners. So whilst all those contractual issues were ongoing, we didn't have anybody step back and say, oh, you know, we're not going to engage with you because we're not ready yet. There was that real desire to stay together and work together. And we had a whole series of workshops, and we involved people like public health organisations to come forward, particularly on the health, you know, specialists within their field to help grow and form what. Sorry, my computer just went silent for a moment. So I think that was a real success for us in our project.
Simon, that's brilliant. That's some really great insights. Thank you. We're out of time, but yeah, brilliant, and a really different and unique pilot as part of the Live Lab. So thank you for that, Simon. I wish you well for the next steps. And then last but not least, we have Transport for West Midlands and Deborah. Morning,
Hi,
Deborah.
Jason. Hello.
Hi. Save the best till last, shall we?
Oh, thank you so much.
Deborah, do you want to tell us a little bit about what your Live Labs is, please?
Well, firstly, in the Network Resilience Live Lab, we're accelerating our capability to manage network incidents and events through the application of pioneering video analytics technology. Secondly, we're bringing together fixed assets, data, and a deep understanding of the travelling public to apply it in operations, and that's to help travelling people to plan ahead and keep moving. And thirdly, we're delivering practical results that will create long-term benefits for local people, whilst protecting the public's privacy through responsible, transparent, and ethical management of data. And we're truly close to our customers in this project, which Dave Simons mentioned earlier. And we've got a lot of off-the-shelf learning to share with the sector later in the project, and that will include model privacy and data sharing agreements, travel personas, and the governance needed on the transport side. And I feel this is really critical if the public sector is going to continue to use and maintain fixed assets and to be a better client for data contracts and ultimately saving taxpayers' money. So what we want to do with the project is enhance the capability of our Regional Transport Coordination Centre that we're very proud of in the West Midlands, and enable more efficient car journeys and improved health through reduced congestion and so on.
Great, Deborah, that sounds fantastic. Deborah, could you just bring to life what a travel persona is, please?
This is always the golden question. So within Transport for West Midlands, we have been doing some quite extensive research into travel segmentation, and that gives you an overall picture of people, maybe by demographics, by their age, and gives you a little bit of an insight into their lives according to classifications, for example, mosaic classifications. So you can get sort of relatively deeply into that person's life. However, to be really truly successful with targeting our communications and network management, getting a really deep granular persona of the person that we're working with is really critical to enable better transport modelling, to enable better wrapping round of communications to people's lives. So it's a really, really detailed picture of somebody's life and their travel preferences. And to gain that, at the moment, we're working with the Connected Places Catapult and with Trinity McQueen, and 50 people in the travelling on the West Midlands network at the moment to really understand their preferences in a deep way and understand how we can help them to keep moving.
That's brilliant, Deborah. And last question, and probably on about 30 seconds or so, but you know, I'm really interested to hear how you're working across boundaries across the West Mids.
Yeah, so we are obviously the network, it casts itself wide. It doesn't stop at the administrative boundaries. So we are collaborating with several live labs to understand their work better. So that includes Staffordshire and Kent and also Thames Valley, to understand how video analytics can work, for example. You know, even beyond there, working with international partners that are using ANPR technology in the Netherlands, for example. So not only does the travelling population not stop at the administrative boundaries of the West Midlands, but we're also extending our live lab to collaborate internationally and bring innovation in to help our network management.
Deborah, thank you for that. We're out of time. We're just eating into the break, but Deborah, thank you, and on behalf of all the other presenters from the live labs, you know, fantastic work, some brilliant insights, lots of different angles, you know, and hopefully that's whet the appetite for many in the audience this morning. Thank you, and I believe I'll be passing back to Hannah.
Yes, thank you so much, Jason. That was brilliant, and it was so good to hear the live labs describing the enthusiasm I felt coming through in terms of describing their projects was brilliant. We have now got a scheduled break. It is scheduled to run until 11:45. I know it's 11:39 already, but if we could try to be back for 11:45, so 11:45, so we can crack on with the Pecha Kucha session, which follows on. So you now have 6 minutes to go and make yourself a fresh cup of tea or coffee, and we'll see you back here at 11:45 prompt. Thanks very much.